Welcome, I'm Elise.
And I'm Jess, and this is Spiritual Alchemy,
the podcast where we explore the intersection of science and spirituality
and how it shapes our everyday lives.
Hi, Jess.
Hey, Elise.
We're back.
We are back again.
And we're talking about past lives today.
Past lives. You know, Elise, past lives is a pretty metaphysical concept. How are we going to tie this into science today?
Well, we're going to try, but this is your warning that today is probably going to be very woo-woo.
Very well.
Not that we're going to try to convince you or shove this idea at you. We hope that you listen with an open mind and perhaps pick up something that inspires you to question or explore further about your beliefs or where you have come from.
And I always say, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. But I think the concept of past lives, so far what we talked about, karmic connections, soul contracts, shadows, a lot of that is weighted in karma. And karma is tallied in your past lives and brought with you into this life. It's the journey of what your soul is here to learn. So understanding your past lives, or what happened in your past lives, things that you experienced in your past lives, can help you in this life, on this journey, learn the things you need to learn.
Mm-hmm. And even if you're unsure if you believe in this, have a little fun with this.
Mm-hmm.
If you have had a past life, who were you? How might it inform who you are today in the year 2025 or whenever you're listening to this? So we've picked these topics, but I'll ask you point blank. Do you believe in past lives, Jess?
Absolutely.
Have you had an experience that has confirmed this belief?
Yes. A very woo-woo experience, but also I think in what kind of sparked this curiosity in this topic is that for a time I was getting these almost like deja vu kind of memories that would surface. And it's like I would remember something like being in a specific room, or like being at a specific place, or like being really drawn to a certain image. It's just like these memories, and it feels like a very visceral knowing of, I just know this. And it's like, as much as I know that the grass is green and the sky is blue, and as much as I can like look in the mirror and know that I'm seeing myself, I can have these memories, and I'm like, I know that this was a part of me somewhere, a part of my soul somewhere. My soul remembers this place, this time, this person.
Mm-hmm.
And then that knowledge kind of just lived in the back of my brain. I never really did anything with it. And I kind of was like, okay, it's probably a past life thing. Like, I'm very nonchalant about all this stuff and always kind of have been. So in 2018 and 2019, I started working at a meditation studio and just kind of like fell into it. Like I'd been aware of meditation. I knew the practice of meditation. I'd been meditating for years at that point. And to open my world in that sense of the knowledge of like, now I'm learning about sound healing, and now I'm learning about Reiki, and now I'm learning about tarot and astrology and craniosacral healing and all these different types of metaphysical healing. And it was such a wonderful world. And one of the types of healing that was offered at the studio was Akashic record and past life regression. And again, you're getting full meta Jess.
You were warned.
And full meta Elise today. So past life regression, Akashic records. And Akashic records are essentially, in a nutshell, a place during transcendental meditation that you can go. Your soul can leave and go and look at these records. And it's basically like the records of everything that has ever happened and ever will happen ever. It is just like the knowledge of the universe, is probably how I would explain it in a nutshell. We'll probably do a separate episode on the Akashic and what that is, if the meta route is the way to go. But I had a friend who was at the studio with me, and she was learning how to do Akashic readings for people. And she offered to do one for me for my birthday. And I was like, yeah, okay, like let's try it out. I'm open to it. And it was such an incredible experience. And she had told me something very specific about a past life that I was here in this life to heal. And I won't share what it is because that's for me to know. And I took it and I was like, cool. That all aligns with me. It aligns with a lot of the memories that I have that just pop up. It aligns with a lot of like people that have come into my life and how I like just know like, oh, past life, like we did this before, but in this dynamic, like I know an ex of mine is from this specific past life and like very much had to heal that connection, that karmic connection that we had. And then what was so cool, I did that reading. She tells me all this stuff about this very specific past life that I've had. And I've had quite a few past lives. I've been here a few times. Years later, I start doing my homework, my spiritual homework. I start working on myself. I start working with a spiritual coach who also works with tarot and like kind of combined that with therapy and doing all this stuff. And she was doing these readings for me. And one of the first things she said to me is, oh, hey, and there's a past life where you were doing this, this, and this, and this, and you're here to heal this. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Do you know my friend who did this reading for me years ago? Because you're saying literally the exact same thing.
Well.
And that was huge confirmation. So, and just so interesting that it's like, again, what they were saying was so specific. And I was like, there's no way that you just made that up. There's no way that either of you would just, like pull that out of thin air and say, here you go. How about you? Have you ever had any type of past life experience? Do you know about your past lives?
I've never had my Akashic records read. I'm old. I just know in my soul I'm old. From a very young age, my parents said that I would walk around like I knew exactly where I was going. And then they would say to like my 4-5-year-old, I have very little memory of this. They'd say, how do you know which way to go? And I would just turn around and go, I'm following my nose. What?
That's a Winnie the Pooh thing to
like,
say.
What 4-year-old turns around confident as hell, goes, I'm following my nose?
She's like, because I'm a little woodland creature.
But I'm very good with directions. People know this about me. You take me somewhere once, I can probably find my way there again, no map. Yes. Which is really weird to think about.
No.
As far as like, because I know I have very good friends who have like no sense of direction. And it's so funny to me because when I can be like, hey, you turn that way and that way. They're like, how do you know? I'm like, well, we drove here. So this is the opposite way back. So navigationally, I've always been very attuned. I have had the privilege of traveling so far in my life. And I lived in East Germany for a little while, and being in a very, very small town, something about that felt really homey and correct. But as you were talking, I remember being in Florence for the first time with my mom and my grandma. And the beauty of Florence is it's just different time periods built on top of each other. So there's like a corner in Florence where you can look at Art Deco, you can look at Baroque period, you can look at the Renaissance class. Like there's a spot where you can sit and you can see all the different types of art and what built up Florence. And if anyone's ever been, or if you plan on going, it's a very confusing city. It's a walkable city. There's not cars in Florence. You have to drop your car at the gate and you walk.
Mm-hmm.
So there's small alleyways. It's kind of grid, not really. You got a river that comes through town. I never got lost in Florence. I was walking around, and every breath I took, I'm like, I have lived here before.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a strange feeling. And no matter which way I took, I was like, oh, this isn't the right way. And I would just make another turn based off of like a gut feeling. And I'm like, oh, and here's the restaurant we went to this morning. And oh, and there's this. I've never been to a place like that in my life where I had never been there before, but I'm walking around. I'm like, yeah, this was my home. I will admit, like, scientifically, research wise, I don't know if this is part of past lives. But it feels like something outside of myself that I can't quite explain.
Yeah.
To that effect.
Have you ever meditated on your past life?
I have.
Has anything come up for you?
A lot of grief and a lot of sorrow.
Mm-hmm. How has that grief and sorrow echoed into your soul's life that you're living now?
You know, I sing opera. And I think when people think of opera, it's sad stories, right? The female heroine that gets sick or is betrayed or dies. And I have been singing opera now for 12 years. And I have never played one of those female heroines. And I think it's very funny that I study this art form. I take that back. I did play my first heroine that died this fall in Sancta Susanna. A nun.
Which she was
a young nun who gets sacrificed. So that was the first one I played. But up until that point, and even still, I don't really play these grief-stricken. Is that the right grief-struck?
Mm-hmm.
I don't play these women. Grief-stricken women. I often play the comedic character, the wise, know-it-all character. And I think for a while I carried, like, I feel like a fraud in opera. I'm not doing what everybody else is doing. But you've asked when I've meditated, it's because I don't have to play those characters. I don't have to play those characters because I've been those characters. And whether or not it's not the right time for me to step out on the stage and be these characters, or if I'm just never meant to be them, there's just something deep inside me where I'm like, I've actually already lived through this. I carry the wisdom inside of me, and it's supposed to come out in my art in other ways, through comedy, through love, through wacky, doesn't really make sense stories. That's how I know. And other times in meditations, I just get real sad and I just cry.
Lot to release.
Perhaps I'm in a place finally in this lifetime that I can release it. Where in past lives, when you're struggling to survive, sometimes there's no time to slow down and feel your grief. You are just literally trying to survive day to day.
I don't like to think of grief, but my analogy for grief sometimes is that, especially when it first happens, it can feel like you're drowning. And all you need is a life preserver just to help you float. And then you can kind of wait for the water to get calmer.
Yeah.
To really find your way back to shore.
Yeah. So I think my art has allowed me to explore a lot of different personalities and a lot of different places, a lot of different characters, a lot of different places. So I don't know, maybe I'm reliving all of them now.
Yeah.
As a live performer on stage. Yikes.
Yeah. What a mirror.
What a mirror. What an opportunity. The dictionary defines reincarnation as the rebirth of a soul in a new body. It comes from Latin roots, meaning entering the flesh again. Quite
a literal stance, but also how poetic of that. It is. Like, I'm reading Anais Nin right now, which is just pure poetry and beautiful and stunning, and like really like a reflection of the human experience, right? So like I like to think of our souls as just like these happy little beams of light, and we're just dee dee dee. I like this poetry of like we're these happy little light beams, and I feel like we get so excited to go down to earth and like learn our lessons and explore and do our things. Again, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Maybe that's not how you see the soul. Maybe you're more of a tortured soul. That's okay. See things as dark and moody, and we're standing on the moors looking off into the distance. Like, cool, good. This is just how I see it. And it's like entering the flesh again, I get to start again.
Mm-hmm.
I get to go back. I get to do it again. I get to do it better. I get to show up and be better. And like, what a poetic entrance.
Mm-hmm. And other definitions that I will skip for time's sake include the idea of continuity, that the soul or consciousness moves through many lifetimes to process growth, karma, and soul evolution. Exactly what you're talking about. It's not just about entering the flesh again. It's exactly what you said. I get to come back and I get to do it again. And I get to do it better this time.
Yeah. Religion and reincarnation. And I know that there are religions that believe in reincarnation. So what are they? What is the difference in those belief systems, or are they very, very similar?
Hinduism has the idea of reincarnation. Samsara, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, is a central belief. The soul Atman is eternal and reborn based on karmic cycles. And the goal in Hinduism is moksha, or being liberated from the cycle. So they do believe that you will continue coming back, as far as this is my understanding of it, you're going to continue coming back, and each lifetime is your chance to get to the ultimate goal.
Yes.
Which is you get to break from the cycle and you don't have to come back.
Yes.
I think I explained that correctly.
You definitely did. So in Hinduism, the concept of reincarnation, it's tied to karma and the cyclical nature of existence. So souls are believed to reincarnate multiple times, evolving through different planes of existence, and they learn and grow. And the duration of this cycle is determined by the individual karma, with some souls taking shorter or longer periods to return.
Then, my guy, we got Buddhist traditions. It is rebirth, and consciousness continues based on karma again, and craving the tanha. And the goal is to reach nirvana, which is the escaping the cycle of suffering. Essentially, you escape. It's funny that they call it that. Like, hey, you want to come back? You want to be a human. It's actually the cycle of suffering.
Yeah.
So
funny. I wore my Nirvana shirt last week. I should have worn it today.
Other examples of different religions believing in reincarnation: Sikhism, the souls reincarnate until they merge with God, which I think is really beautiful. You're just trying to merge with God.
Which also sounds like enlightenment, because enlightenment is the idea that you reach enlightenment by returning, your soul returns to the divine.
And so unimind, we all become one. Kabbalistic Judaism, so this is Jewish mysticism, Jewish mysticism. And they believe in Gilgul. Gilgul. Did I say that right? It's Gilgul. Gilgul. The soul transmigration to complete unfinished spiritual work, which sounds a lot like these Eastern cultures of Hinduism and Buddhism, Jainism. And then I had to go, my favorite are the ancient Greeks and their philosophy, because you know that they were out there debating what happened. And Pythagoras and Plato are quoted to believe in the transmigration of souls. Plato taught that souls reincarnate to learn and eventually return to the realm of forms. So kind of like energy is neither created nor destroyed. He was playing with the idea of that way before. Because I think these Greek philosophers really sat around and they were like, let's talk through all the possibilities. to bring it all the way up to modern day, our new age and modern spirituality, where I think I will say for myself, that's where I stand and what I believe in, is it's kind of a combination of all of these cultures and all of these religions coming together finally, because we are in a very interconnected world now. We can pull from all these different religions. Mm-hmm. Reincarnation is a journey of healing mm-hmm. and evolution. And like you were talking about before, it's popular in practices like past life regression therapy, mm-hmm. energy work, Reiki, mm-hmm. sound healing. And it can be used to explain patterns, mm-hmm. your fears, mm-hmm. but my favorite, your gifts. Often people say that if you are naturally gifted in an area in this life, it's usually tied to a past life. Mm-hmm. You're a natural writer, a natural musician, natural mm-hmm. artist.
I always find that I tend to be like a natural leader. Mm-hmm. And I know in a past life I was in a leadership position. I've actually been in leadership in multiple past lives. Very much like kicking and screaming because I don't want to do it. But it's the interesting way of like having to step up, like the lesson of having to step up and do it. Mm-hmm. And also keep my ego in check in the meantime. Yeah, it's interesting because and like kind of piggybacking off this talk of spirituality and like, you know, what the spiritual community has discovered about reincarnation that I find really fascinating and interesting. And I don't know how much of, it's Michael Newton Dr. Michael Newton that you've read, mm-hmm. Journey of Souls, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Destiny of Souls. Fascinating. Dr. Michael Newton is a hypnotherapist and psychologist, and he does these hypnotherapy sessions, past life regression therapy sessions with his clients. And very specifically, he talks less about like the past life, but he talks about the end of the past life and what happens with our souls in the in-between of death and rebirth, and where do our souls go, and what do our souls do in that meantime. And fascinating the patterns that he sees. And it's like he interviews hundreds of people, and I always do these on audiobooks because it's so fascinating to hear them, but I've listened to hundreds of these accounts. They all say the same thing, that, you know, and this is again just quoting from these books, but generally what happens is they leave. They might not remember their actual death, or they might be like above the scene and like kind of observing, and the soul's goal right after that is to be there for their loved ones. So they might go and show up and comfort a child or a parent or a lover or a friend. Like they might go and show up and comfort them and just kind of try to extend their energy out to let them know like, hey, feel some love. I love you. I'm here. I'm safe. I'm good. And then they go through this, again, discussion for another day, but there's two different things that can happen when you go to heaven or go to
wherever we
go. Either you're met by all of your friends and all of your soul friends, like your soul family meets you, and you have this big party of like, hey, welcome back, you did it, great job. And then you go with your guides and you go through a life review. So then you go back through everything, you talk about the lessons, and it's kind of like I would call it like a guidance counselor meeting, or like a student teacher meeting.
A peer review.
It's a peer review. So you get a peer review of like what happened in your life and what you just went through, and how, you know, here's what we did good, here's what we need to work on in the next time. And what, you know, talking to different people and what they went through in their lives. Sometimes if the life was really tough and they had to take on a lot of heavy things, the soul might then decide to seclude for a little bit and go into like a solitary moment to regroup, because what happens is that your physical self drains a lot of your soul energy. So you don't go back with a full tank. You got to go regroup. You got to fill your tank back up. And what I found was interesting, that a couple of the different case studies that he did confirmed or said was that some souls take, a couple years to reincarnate again. Some souls wait thousands of years to reincarnate. There is no set timeline of you're going to reincarnate as soon as you go, you're back. It's a lot about like deciding when you're ready, deciding what you're there to do. And again, there's like this idea of your soul group, your soul team that you're there with, you're working with, and you kind of all get together and say, okay, like we're all going to do this. Another interesting thing about it was that it's like, again, it's such a metaphysical thing that we can't understand. But I love this, that it's like, while there's a piece of your soul on earth, there's still a piece of your soul that is connected to that higher level of consciousness. So you are as above, so below. And I love the image of a tree when I think about life and I think about souls, and when I'm meditating personally, I really think about the branches are what connect me to everything around me, and like my spiritual self, my highest self, and everything around me that is light and for my highest good. My roots are what keep my feet on the ground and don't let me miss what's happening in reality. Because the thing too about doing all this work and doing all the spirituality work, because I've been there, sometimes you get too up in the trees, you get too up in the branches, and you spend too much time up here and not enough time grounded and present,
right,
and connected to who's with you, who's here. And sometimes you're too down here, you're too grounded, you're too in the roots, and you're not connected enough to the branches, and your leaves aren't blossoming.
Yeah.
And it's very much like you have to be connected to both and centered in that.
It's kind of what I teach when I'm teaching voice. There's a lot of people that think you just sing from like your throat up. And it always blows people's mind when I say, hey, when you sing that, can you think about your feet on the ground and actually like rub your feet into the ground? And it's usually a very different sound that comes out. And I'm like, yeah, you're singing with your whole body. You're not just singing from your neck up.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same thing that you're saying. You can't just live in the tree branches and you can't just feel the roots in the ground. You really have to recognize it's a full top to bottom, bottom to top experience. So have people had more lives than others? And what characteristics would distinguish one group from another, like a young soul versus an old soul, or let me say that again, someone who has reincarnated a lot versus someone who has only reincarnated 1 or 2 times?
So I'm gonna again go very meta on this, and just in observation, what I've observed. The older souls are the ones who go through the most shit, because we've been here before, we've learned some stuff, and we're really just here to start doing the work and really get to it. And our souls are ready to hit the ground running. We're like, we know what's up, let's go. The newer souls are the ones that I'm just like, oh, you're so baby. Like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
Not to say they won't go through things, but like, it's more like, to me, when I talk to someone and I'm like, oh, you're new.
Yeah, I think of young souls more focused on success, identity, external achievements, lots of lessons tied to the ego and the material experience, which is that's great. I hope you get rich. I hope you get famous. I hope you get successful. Because if you're young and that's what you got to do right now, I hope you get that.
You got to start somewhere. Your soul has to start somewhere. You can't just start at high school. You got to go through first grade, got to go through kindergarten, got to go through preschool.
Yeah, and it's not
And you can get a gold star.
And it's not about the number of lives that you've reincarnated to. It's about growth. So remembering that some souls or some people evolve quicker than others. And then others kind of get stuck in these loops and in these patterns, and they're going to keep repeating it until they evolve and learn. So,
I mean, at the end of the day, going back to this collective consciousness, we're all on the same level. We're all just here to learn. And does it matter who's been here more and who's been here less?
I don't think so. I really don't. I think if you think about our evolution and how the average age that we're living to be now is probably around like 80, 90. I think how fast you grow. You're pretty much grown into your full adult self, maybe let's say by like 25.
Yeah. Well, that's when your frontal lobe fully develops. So
it's like 1/4 of the way there. And you got so much more time. And time moves different when you become an adult. So this leads us to the science and academic research on reincarnation, which I loved reading about.
Yeah.
Dr. Ian Stevenson from the University of Virginia is one of the most well-known researchers in this field of researching reincarnation. And he studied over 2,500 cases of children who claimed to remember past lives.
Yeah.
And he wrote books like 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation, and this documented children who gave specific names, dates, and places from past lives, recognized people and places they had never visited in this life, and they showed birthmarks or physical traits matching wounds from the previous person's reported death.
Have you heard of this story about the kid who like identified his murderer?
No.
Oh my gosh, this was crazy. I forget when and where this happened, but essentially this little kid, when he was born, kind of like was talking about the village he lived in and like, you know, what happened to him, and like his neighbor killed him. And like I forget why, but the parents were like, let's go back to your town. And like he picked out the person and the guy confessed, and they found his bones, like the guy's bones, in the backyard. Crazy.
So I'm saying kids are so much more magical than we give them credit for.
They're fresh. You know, they're more connected to the higher state. They haven't been conditioned yet.
So the successor to Dr. Stevenson is a guy named Dr. Jim Tucker. And he focused mostly on American children with similar memories. Wrote his book, Return to Life, where he shared cases where, same thing, kids would recall names, occupations, details that were later verified. And in his findings, he emphasized that these cases often start between ages 2 and 6 and then like very quickly start fading with age. It's that sweet spot to ask kids like, hey, do you remember anything about your past life? And getting curious about what a child is saying rather than just being like, it's nonsense.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So possible theories or interpretations of this idea of reincarnation. They are doing lots of studies around the world on genetic memory, or something called epigenetics, where they are starting to understand that traumatic memories can actually live in our DNA and can then be passed through our genes. And it's not, the argument here is that it's not reincarnation, but it's inherited memory from your genetic line. So that's like one way of kind of pulling it to reincarnation, but also like putting a pin in that for a second.
I mean, it kind of ties into like the idea of the soul family that I talk about, where it's like you kind of reincarnate with the same group of souls over and over again. You your contracts are tied to each other to be like, okay, let's go, like, you know, learn this and let's learn that and let's do this at this time and that at that time. And you know, like, yeah, sometimes if one soul is not doing their work and they're not learning their lessons, that can ripple out into the rest of the group.
We have something also called quantum consciousness. This is the Penrose and Hameroff theory that suggests that consciousness may be stored at a quantum level, meaning everything is happening all the time and we all have access to it. And it's happening outside of our brain, raising questions about continuity after death.
I love to say that time is not like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's happening all at once. What's that movie? Everything Everywhere All at Once.
It's a great one.
Yeah.
And it'll break your brain.
Yeah. Love when my brain's broken.
So I guess the question here, do we ever stop reincarnating?
Yes.
Oh, thank God.
In many belief systems, including those based in reincarnation, souls eventually stop reincarnating. So this
Bitch is
occurs.
tired. Thank God.
She's tired. It occurs when a soul achieves enlightenment, which signifies the cessation of the cycle of birth and death. It can happen when a soul fully understands the true nature and its connection to ultimate reality or the divine.
Beautiful.
Once enlightenment is attained, the soul is said to be free from the need to reincarnate and may continue its existence in a different state, such as merging with the divine or residing in a higher realm.
I love that. That leads us to our journal prompts for the week. Jess, hit me with what I need to journal about as far as reincarnation.
All right. What place feels oddly familiar and what emotions does it stir? Which life patterns keep repeating and what lesson might they hold? Envision one past life. Who were you? How would that wisdom guide you today?
That's a fun one.
Yeah.
That one you can kind of choose. Just be whoever you want to be.
Be who you want to be.
That's the tea on past lives.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Meta.
Very meta.
Meta day.
Thanks for going full meta with us. Thanks for just going on the journey. Sometimes you need to buy the ticket, ride the ride.
We did. Catch you next time. Thanks for joining us today. We're so glad you were here. For more information on our episodes and to connect with us on social media, follow us at Spiritual Alchemy Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Stay golden!